Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. This channel is dedicated to finding out whether I really do know it all or not. Make sure you like and subscribe, and definitely make sure you ask questions in the comments or at my email address, which is either in the description or at the end of the video. Without further ado, let's see what my wife found for me today. Drum roll, please. Okay, well, there's something. I have a feeling that one of my students or former students is asking this question. This one is, how do you model a hand in 3D? So it's actually not that bad to do the basics. I'm going to have to switch the camera around and all this kind of junk because I can't. Anyway, I'm going to do a screen grab of the whole thing. But yeah, I'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. So just a second. Pew! So I don't think this is letting me use the good microphone, so I apologize if the sound is not the greatest in the world. I think it's just using the one that's built into the computer. So sorry about that. Anyways, so here's Autodesk's Maya. If you don't know Maya, then yeah, you probably ought to learn about that first. But anyway, I'm just going to kind of make an assumption that you already know more or less what you're doing here. Let's put this in the 4 view quick, and let's do the top down. And we're going to quickly make a cube, which hopefully will appear there. Yep. Alrighty, and let's just kind of stretch it out a bit. So we're going to make it, I don't know. I mean, it can be whatever size for your hand, right? But anyway, if we switch back to here, we'll shrink it down. What we want it to be is kind of a hand-ish shape, right? So it needs to be a little skinnier than that. There we go. And probably a little extended in one direction. So this is going to be the palm of the hand, right? So this will be the top of the hand. This will be the bottom of the hand. This will be the thumb side, and this will be all the fingers that are coming out. So we just have to get the shape, you know, reasonably close here. So okay, so that's reasonable. Okay, so now if you go up here and click on the channel box, we need to look at our inputs here, and let's see if I remember correctly. The height we want to leave as 1. The width we want to do 4 or 5. Hold on a second. Whoops. Sorry. That was not what I was looking for. Subdivisions width. My apologies. Okay. Yes. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers, and then we need a thumb. So we also need to subdivide this guy over here. So we need our subdivisions in depth to be 4 as well. Yes, that looks correct. All right. So we're going to start with this. And now what we're going to do is we're going to extrude out the 4 fingers. That's basically the process here. So we're going to right click on this, and we're going to go into face mode. We're going to pick this, and we're going to go in our modeling. We're going to go up here. I can never remember which one it's in. There it is. Sorry, it's under edit mesh. And let's just make sure that our extrude function is set to whatever. Let's just reset it. So yep, all that should be good. Extrude, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this guy out. So imagine this being approximately, if you think about your finger, right, so you can just look at it. This is the first bone up to the knuckle, and then I'm going to go ahead and push Y, and I'm going to pull out the next one. Oops, sorry, that's my bad. Undo that if you want to. Push G. Always got to remember the correct things. So that would be G to do that. And now you're going to pull out a slightly shorter one, right? A little bit shorter. And we can keep refining this. And then we're going to push G again. And we're going to extrude the last little bone out. So this is the fingernail part, right? So this will be pretty short like that. All right. And we're going to repeat this process for the other 3 fingers. I will probably speed up the footage here just to keep you guys from having to watch this all very painfully slowly. But anyway, the process is the same. It's going to be, actually, let's do one more slow speed and then we'll do it faster. So I'm going to do extrude, which means I can just click on this guy because that's the last used tool, right? There we go, sorry, G. Pull this one out. The middle finger is a little bit longer, right? So G again. So I'm just going to kind of go in here and just make these guys a little bit longer. G again. So your middle finger's a little bit longer, like that, okay? Yeah, they're right together right now. We can always separate them later. But okay, so now I'll do the last 2 relatively rapidly. Alrighty, so there we go. So I know it doesn't look like much yet, but that's the start of our fingers. Now we need to go down here to our thumb. We're going to temporarily, we're going to use this guy right here, but I'm going to kind of extend the size of this. So I'm going to right click again, and I'm going to choose edge mode, and I'm going to double click, which selects this edge, and then I'm going to move it. I'm just going to kind of pull it back. So I'm going to make the thumb part a little bit fatter. Same thing for this guy. Right, we want to leave this here because these are going to be our knuckles, so we don't want to get too crazy about that. By the way, I'm using the keyboard shortcuts for these guys, but if you don't know them, this is like, you know, the select tool, the move tool, which is W, the rotate tool, which is E, and the scale tool, which is R. So, FYI, in case you don't know that already, it's useful to know. Okay, we're going to switch back to face mode. This one's going to be a little bit more complicated because we have to kind of come out at a weird angle. But anyway, we're going to hit G again, and we're going to first of all pull this guy out sideways. So this is the base of our thumb, but then we're going to kind of move it like that, right? So actually, this may be too thick here. I may have to squish that back in again later. But I don't know, the bottom of your thumb is pretty thick, right? So we're only going up to the knuckle, so I'm going to actually squish this back in a little bit. This is just the first part that's kind of like the webbing of your hand. If you look at your thumb, there's actually an internal bone that's in there, and then the second joint of the thumb. So there's actually only 3 joints in the thumb. But anyway, now I'm going to hit G again, pull this out, and move it into position so it doesn't look like it's broken, right? And then G again for the actual thumbnail part. Okay. And we can refine this stuff a little bit. We can do what we need to do. There we go. Okay, so this thumb's pretty excessively long right now. Well, actually not that bad. It should come up to more or less the knuckle of your index finger-ish. So I'll have to adjust this a little bit, but I think we're good to go for now. All right. So actually, you know what? Let's undo a little bit. Okay. I'm going to undo back a few because I actually am going to make this a little bit shorter. Okay. Let's pull this one in a little bit. Actually, no. Okay. Undo all the way here. All right. Don't forget about the beautiful undo. Whoops. There we go. I'm gonna make this a little bit reduced. It seemed like it was a little excessive. And yes, this is a bit of a recipe, but there's always room for playing around. Okay, so there we go. That's a little bit less. If you imagine that rotated, it'll get just about to the knuckle, so that's actually just about right. Okie dokie, so now we've got the basics of the shape done. And so if we look at this, and here's a little secret, object mode again. If I press the 3 key across the top of the numbers, it will actually kind of give us a preview of what it looks like. So you can already see this looks way, 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 way better when it's in its smooth preview mode. So don't freak out about it. So we're going to go back to 1 because we want to work on this in kind of the blocky mode right now. But yeah. Okay, so now we're going to go back into edge mode. So, whoops. There we go. All right, we're going to go back into edge mode, and I'm going to add some knuckle edges. Actually, no, sorry. First thing I'm going to do is go into face mode, and I'm going to extrude these guys. We'll just go ahead and finish up our extrusion. So here we're going to do extrude by pressing G again, and we're going to pull this up just a bit, and then we're going to like grab the middle part. Whoops. We're going to grab the middle part if we can get it. All right, we may have to do this one at a time. There we go. Anyway, what we're going to do is if you grab the little boxes, the little cubey things, then what you can do is you can shrink this down. So we're just making some knuckles, some proto-knuckles here. There we go. All right, and again, same process for all the other ones, so I'll speed up this footage probably. All right, so back again. So you can see what I've done is I've raised these up, and again, if I press 3 to preview the smooth thing, you can see that that's actually pretty cool. We can raise this up a little bit more later if we want to, if we want to define these knuckles more. It depends on whether you want an elegant hand or a little bit more of a rough hand. But anyway, okay, so we can go back to our view again, and now we can go to edges. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select this guy here, and then if you hold the Command key down or the Control key in, or maybe it's the Windows key in Windows anyway, sorry I'm using a Mac, but anyway, it will pop up this thing. You want to go to Edge Loop Utilities, to Edge Loop, and duplicate. And notice what it does is it grabs this edge loop and then it creates two new ones. Now they're too far apart right now, but I can easily double click them, go into the move version. So what I'm imagining here is my knuckles and the place where it's going to bend. So I want to create a little bit of a spot to bend like that. So yeah, I'm going to do that to this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. So we're going to create all of these extra little places for it to bend. So those would be our little knuckly places. So I'm going to speed this up again so you don't have to sit there and watch me do this, but there we go. Okay, so we're going to cheat this little part here by grabbing this edge loop. And we're going to go edge loop and duplicate. And yeah, it's a little bit funky on the side, but that's okay. We can move just this point later on. By grabbing that and kind of adjusting that space a little bit. So we go into point mode instead of edge mode. And yeah, we'll have to do that to the bottom one too. Anyway, so you want to pull this in fairly close. Again, this is just to give this a little place to grow. No big deal. Again, right click, go vertex. All right. There we go. Just kind of straighten it out. So anyway, you actually don't absolutely have to add this whole setup. And honestly, what I probably should have done is I probably should have duplicated these before I went and extruded this. But whoops, it's been a while since I've done this. I'm trying to do this live, you know. So there you go. Anyway, so I will kind of speed through again the rest of this. Actually, wait, before I do that, let's preview what this looks like in smooth mode. So yeah, you can see it's starting to come together. You know, the thumb, even the thumb, without having done anything yet, is starting to look reasonable. So we're going to get there. I'll keep on messing with this, and I'll be back. I'm going to fast forward all this stuff real quick, and we'll be back in real time in a moment. All right, so let's move on to the thumb here. All right, so you'll see we're going to go command, right click, edge loop and duplicate. And then we're just going to, we have to be a little bit more careful about this one. As you can see, it can make it look all funky. So we need to make sure that we're pulling this in just right. All right, and for now, we'll just go ahead and double click this and delete it. And somehow, oh, that's not good. Somehow this guy's gotten disconnected into two pieces, so that's not fantastic. I'm guessing, yeah, there's multiple pieces here. So one thing we can do, it's a little bit brutal, but we can just delete these extra vertices. Not exactly sure how they got there, probably because I was screwing around with how I was doing the other thing. Let's make sure there's none on the bottom. Okay, now it should behave a little bit better. So let's go ahead and double click. No, that one's not going to work, but we can do this one instead. Yes. All right. Okay, so again, we want to get rid of this one, but now we've got this other guy. And we've got a good edge loop. Good, okay. So we can pull this a little bit this way, a little bit this way, and that gives us, again, a place to bend this thing. All right, so, and then, sorry, we have one more over here. So we need to do, this guy needs to get duplicated somehow. This one's not duplicated anymore. Oy, oy, oy. This is what happens when you try to do this live. Welcome to the world of teaching. That's what happens all the time. It's like, oh crap, let's see if I can remember how to do this while we're doing it. Okay, so we're going to pull this one in a little bit. Okay, good. And then the last one. So we need to get this guy. Like I said, the thumb's a little more complicated because it's not directly on the axes. So you have to get a little bit more creative. All right, and then we'll pull this last one in like that, and like that. That one's already in a pretty decent spot. Let's pull this one up just a little bit more. Okay, and actually, come to think of it, after all that work, we don't really need this because this is the part that's kind of stuck in your hand. One thing I can definitely do here is I can take this, just this one individual part, and I can move it back. And now I see again that there are some vertices that have popped in here. Okay. So again, I can kind of highlight these vertices and just delete them. Don't want anything extra. So yeah, so I'm going ahead and making this guy a little bit wider. And go ahead and just grab that one. Maybe pull it back a little bit. And you can see, wow, I've made a mess of this. Hopefully you didn't do as bad as me. Hopefully you've got this all working. So there we go. Anyway, the good part about this is when you do the smooth function, it really takes care of a lot of this stuff, right? So if we press 3, you can see it already looks pretty reasonable. We're going to have to like mess around with the back of this palm, the back of the palm, if we are expecting to put this in, like connect it up with a wrist or something, which I would assume you probably would eventually. We also probably want to taper down the front, so we can go back into face mode again. We can click on this, we can click this, and we can reduce the tips of these fingers a little bit to make them look a little bit better. So it's just grabbing the yellow ball, or the yellow box, sorry, at the end. And we're just reducing the scale of our fingertips a little. Okay. And we can do that to our thumb too. Right, although the thumb tends to stay kind of fat, so we can pull in the side to side a little bit. And that may make it look a little funky, so we may have to go back into move mode. Actually, no, it's okay. Yeah, I think that's good. And actually, come to think of it, now that I'm looking at this, don't think we need these 3, but I don't think we need that one, that one. Yeah, we basically only need this bottom joint here and this top joint, so I'm going to go ahead. I made things overly complicated. Sorry about that. Yeah, okay. And so we can also take this edge right there. We can go into move, and we can kind of extend the thumb that way. So you'll have to kind of play around with this while you're going back and forth, again, pressing 3 to smooth it out. The last thing I'll do, I'm just getting the basics of this hand. A lot of work can be done to refine the shape, like increase and decrease the knuckles and all of this stuff. But I'm going to increase the size of the middle knuckles real quick and also just show you how to do some fingernails. And that is all I'll do, because otherwise this video is going to be excessively long. Okay, so again, go back to 1 mode. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to face mode. We're going to grab this center face. And again, we're going to extrude. So if this is still your last tool, then you can just press G again. And that was not correct. All right. Edit mesh, extrude. Yeah, somehow the tool got messed up. So if you need to, you can go back. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ever so slightly move this down, and I'm going to shrink it in. So what I'm doing is I'm creating my fingernail. So if you can see that, right, and that's probably even a little excessive in terms of bringing it down. So I just want to create just a hint of a fingernail there, and then you would use texturing and stuff like that to fix that problem. So there we go. Again, I'll speed this up for the other one so you don't have to sit here and watch me do this at normal speed. So I'll be back in a minute. Alrighty, so let's take a quick look at this. And yeah, there we go. So obviously the fingernails are now kind of sticking up, so you'll probably have to grab these faces and pull them down a little bit. But notice you can also kind of expand these. You can go in and you can scale these up so that they're bigger. And certainly we can move them down so that they're more kind of squished in. And obviously alter the shape and everything. But that's the basic shape of the fingernail and all that stuff. So we can do that. The one last thing I will do is go into edge mode again. And if we double click this center part and press the scale button, what we're going to do is we're just going to scale out these knuckles just a wee bit. Right? So again, it looks ridiculous in the square mode, but it actually helps to sell this. And I'll show you. Right, so we probably have to go even more, a little bit more excessive. Actually, at this point, it might be valuable to go ahead and change it to the 3 preview mode, and that way you can see. And again, it just depends on what you want your knuckles to look like. As to, and now I can start really seriously messing with this in this preview mode, but because for some reason these guys look like they're in different spots in the preview mode versus the other one. So anyway, so I'm going to go through quickly and at least get this basic part done, and then we'll return and we'll talk about it. So you can see now that I'm sort of just reshaping the thumb here a little bit to make the thumbnail not look so ridiculous. But anyway, it kind of depends on what shape your thumb is or whatever shape you're trying to duplicate. But yeah, so you can go ahead and pull this guy out and kind of stretch it a little. Do that. Take this one and stretch out the thumbnail. Get it close. All right, so yeah, I think I may have overdone it. The thumb looks a little bit huge now. But at this point, it's all about refining the shape. So now we're into this mode of like, how do we refine this? How do we refine this? You could take this center part of here. So maybe maybe all of these guys by holding the shift key down, and we can move them up, right? So we can pull this part in a little bit, and that will make it look a little bit more like palmy, right? And we can also do the same thing with the top. We can take these guys, maybe you want some like kind of veiny stuff, I don't know, right? Oop, sorry. Again, shift key, shift key, shift key, shift key, shift key, shift key, pull up. So you can kind of play around with the shape of the hand and all. So yeah, all right. The one last thing I will do before I go is, so here we've got the hand. It's in preview mode, but when we go back, it looks like a big old square block. So what we can do to fix that problem is we can go to Mesh up here and do Smooth. And again, we'll do the options. You just want to do one division level. And now when you smooth it, that actually, so you can actually see what you can do. You can change this, like, you can make this 3, which is crazy excessive. But yeah, you can see how it's like now. It's like a super, super smooth mesh. But 1 is fine. And so that will show us what our basic thing is. So yeah, so here's the hand, and you can see it's in pretty good shape. You can actually go in here and you can do things like sculpting and so forth. If you go to Mesh Tools, Sculpting Tools, there's a bunch of different sculpting tools that you can go in and you can sculpt it. You can make this guy look less like tubes and more like decent stuff. And you know, you can go ahead and just have fun with it. I would actually, if you're going to go ahead and sculpt it, I would recommend doing the sculpting before, at least partially, before you smooth the model, and then you can do it again afterwards. But you can kind of get the broad strokes before you do that. Hopefully this was useful, and I will return you to me on the camera. All right, so that's the basics. Obviously, at this point, you'll need to like refine all of the little pieces of it, but that's just basically tweaking all of these things. Interesting question. This is different. This is a practical question. I kind of like it. I teach 3D animation, so if you want to ask other questions, then by all means, definitely do that. You know, I'm not the greatest modeler in the world, but I'm definitely good at like character animation and technical animation, and I can talk about motion capture, or I can talk about compositing, etc., etc. So just, you know, fire away, ask questions if you have any more questions like this. Hopefully this is kind of cool and interesting to a subset of the people who are out there. Anyway, thanks so much for asking the question. Make sure, again, that you like and subscribe, and definitely make sure you ask more questions in the comments or at drknowitallknows@gmail.com. Until next time, bye-bye.